Apple hates free speech. Apple said that if Elon Musk allows free speech to happen on Twitter, then Apple would ban the Twitter app from its app store. Now, I want to tell you something that you maybe haven't thought about before. If Apple, or anybody else for that matter, stops free speech from happening on Twitter or stops someone's ability to say something, not only have they punished that person's ability to say what they want, speak their mind, or whatever, they've also punished you. You're also a victim. Because not only have they taken away that person's right to say something, they've taken away your right to hear something. So now you're gullible, you're misinformed, you're naive because you haven't heard of that. People all the time are like, Mark, how come I never heard that before? Because you've been denied the ability to hear. So it's both. It works both ways. Whether you realize it or not, you are a victim of this. And so Apple pulled all advertising from Twitter. Well, we're not going to spend any money on there. Now, that's their right to do that, and I think we should. We should all be voting with our money. It's the only vote that counts. If you don't like Twitter, then certainly don't give them your money. And if Apple doesn't, that's their right to do that because that's their ideology, but it also signals to me who they are. And then I have to ask myself, do I want to give them my money? Right? That's what the whole point of voting with your money is. Then on top of it, they said, hey, we're also going to strip it from its app. We'll strip it from its app store. So Twitter can't even be found. Now, that'd be a pretty big blow. Elon Musk tweeted out, Apple has mostly stopped advertising on Twitter. Do they hate free speech in America? He said. And then he asked a poll. Musk posted a poll asking his followers if Apple should, quote, publish all censorship actions it has taken that affect its customers. Well, Apple didn't like that. Now, he said, hey, should Apple come out and share all the information that they've done to censor that affect customers? He said, we're going to do it. We're going to be transparent. We're going to regain trust. Apple didn't like that. And then he went on to say, quote, Apple has also threatened to withhold Twitter from its app store, but won't tell us why, he added. Apple's stock dropped by 2.63% by the close of trading on Monday, partly because of the criticism from Musk and also from the civil unrest in manufacturing plants in China. Now, that's a whole other story with Apple that we need to dig into. What's going on with Apple in China? Well, I think that's something that's actually super important. Now, before I tell you what's going on in China, well, actually, let's jump into that because that's actually pretty important. So, as you might know, Apple supports China. Apple supports slave labor by the Uyghurs in China. I believe like over half of Apple products are made in China. And if you're not aware, probably because you're not on Twitter, there's massive social unrest, not just social unrest, protests going on in China. Now, why is this a big deal? We see protests all around the world. Well, it's a big deal because protests don't happen in China. This is the largest protest in China since, I believe, 1989 Tiananmen Square, where student protesters were gunned down by the Communist Party. They gun people down. They don't allow protests to happen there, and they do pop up from time to time, but they don't pop up all over the place. Now, why did it pop up? Oh, interesting enough, it was at an Apple manufacturing plant. We don't know all the details. We probably never will. Apparently, according to the people on the ground, they were misled. They were mistreated. They weren't paid for the work they provided. Now, Apple hires a company to do it over there, I suppose, so maybe it wasn't under their direct control, but it's still their fault. Why are they working with dictatorial, whatever that word is, dictatorships, let's call it that, dictatorships, harsh authoritarian regimes, 1 million people in slave labor camps? Why are they giving their business to them in the first place? Why are they using these companies that are taking advantage of these workers and cause these protests to happen? Now these protests are happening all over the place. But it gets worse with Apple. I wish it ended there. It's so much worse. So Apple's over there is supporting this regime that has over 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps. And using them for slave labor. And Apple supports that, gives them money. Now, whatever happened, workers were mistreated. Now it's created these protests that have sparked massive protests all over China. And the government, the communist, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is trying everything they can to stop this as fast as they can. They must stop dissent. They can't allow anybody to think that they could protest like this. They're demanding the President Xi steps down. That's punishable by death. You can't talk about the president in China like that. So they're trying to stop this as fast as they can. Now, of course, the Chinese authorities, they have this social credit score system. They track everybody. They have a health passport system. They started turning everybody's health passports red, trying to lock them down in place. They're doing everything they can to track these people down. This headline here says, Chinese authorities seek out protesters as police swarm streets and university students are sent home. So they're swarming streets. They're trying to find these people. They're trying to jail these people. They're trying to lock them up. They're trying to kill them. The Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission also said illegal and criminal acts that disrupt social order would not be tolerated, period. Not even peaceful protests. So protesters are scuffling with police. This is getting really, really bad. It's getting dangerous, getting violent. And they're using technology to stop this, to hunt people down, to track them down. And of course, the people are using technology to try to get around that. Of course, right? So one workaround was that they figured out, well, on our Apple iPhones, if we use AirDrop to share files, they can't track that. Well, that's pretty good. Because if we email it and we SMS it, the government sees all that. But if we use our iPhones and we AirDrop files, then China doesn't see that, and now we're protected. Guess what? Well, China found out about that. They didn't like that. And then guess what? So then China went to Apple and said, hey, Apple, you need to shut that feature off for our people. And what do you think Apple did? If you think they bowed down to the government and helped the government squash dissent and squash free speech, you would be right. Because Apple hates free speech. Now, you can whatever side of the aisle you want to be on. Okay, it's their business. How could Apple survive if they don't have that business in China? Whatever. So they put money over people's lives. That's the way you see it. It's a pretty big deal. Apple did not respond to the request for comment. It's a big deal. These people are over there fighting for their lives. They've been locked down. They have a zero COVID policy. They can't even move. And really where this got ignited was because the zero COVID policy, people are literally like welded. The doors are welded in their homes. Are locked in. A fire broke out and like 10 people died in the fire. This is gross. This is gross human rights violations, and Apple's behind this.